When I was younger, I started going to one of the recreation centers that United Way supports. I started off with swimming lessons, and then my parents put me in the summer camp there. At camp, I was always very shy when people first met me. A lot of staff helped me get out of my comfort zone. I did cooking classes, a leadership program, and now I'm one of the staff.
When I began my career, the organization I was working for was involved in a volunteer program with United Way. And what an eye-opener that was for me. I had no idea the broad reach that United Way had in the community. Ever since then, I've been involved both financially and as a volunteer.
Yeah, I don't think I would have been able to attend this university without the help of the staff. We did a lot of interview sessions, and they read through all my essays before I submitted them. Now I'm in my first year of an integrated science program. I don't think I would be doing what I love today if it weren't for United Way, and the only thing I can say is thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of our Women United Speaker Series, Overdue. My name is Jassy Hundle, and I'm the Director of Resource Development with United Way Halton and Hamilton. It is my absolute pleasure to be here with all of you. Women are a driving force behind charitable giving and volunteerism, and this evening we will hear from three dynamic leaders from TD Bank as they share with us how women are redefining the face of philanthropy. I would like to begin our program this evening by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all the lands that we are on today. While we meet once again on a virtual platform, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands, which we each call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. Your United Way Halton and Hamilton is situated upon the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and the Haudenosaunee Six Nations. The territory is mutually covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy and the Ojibwe and other allied nations to peacefully share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. This land is home to many Indigenous peoples today, and we are grateful to live, work, and play in the spirit of the Dish with One Spoon. From coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home. Land acknowledgement is only one small part of supporting Indigenous communities. We hope our land acknowledgement statement will inspire others to stand with us in solidarity as we reflect and try to move forward in the spirit of reconciliation and collaboration as a community. For those tuning in for the first time, our Women United program is an important part of United Way Halton and Hamilton and a national United Way worldwide program. Women United is a global growing force of over 70,000 women who are dedicated to creating a world of opportunity for everyone and creating lasting change to lift up their communities. We advocate for health, education, and financial stability of every person in our community. Thanks to our amazing community, Your United Way raises over $10 million annually, supporting more than 300,000 people, and of that is proud to invest $1.1 million into 26 programs that support women and girls through intervention, crisis, and prevention. We would like to thank our sponsors, TD Bank. TD is a major supporter of United Way across Canada and the US. TD is dedicated to the sponsorship of important community programs like this series you are seeing tonight. We are grateful for our long-standing partnership with TD and their outstanding leadership. And speaking of that outstanding leadership, we are pleased to have our very own 2021 campaign chair, Anna Yaakovelli, Senior Vice President of TD Metrowest, join us this evening along with her distinguished colleagues, Joanne Ryan, Vice President, Philanthropic Advisory Services, and Alicia Rose, Senior Manager, Strategy and Social Impact, Global Corporate Citizenship, You'll get to hear more about these three dynamic leaders in just a moment, but I would first like to introduce this evening's moderator, our very own Women United champion, Michaela Hutchinson. Michaela is a local philanthropist, social entrepreneur, community activist. Michaela has been involved with Women United for many years and continues to lead and advocate for gender equality across our communities. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Jazzy. It's a pleasure to be moderating a themed session, Women in Philanthropy tonight, a subject matter definitely close to my heart. And perfect timing because today is National Philanthropy Day. Looking back in time, we have always been surrounded by women in philanthropy, cloaked as tea parties, church meetings, quilting circles, ladies' luncheons, book clubs. Women have always found ways, creative ways, to channel one's family money and collectively address the need for social change. Today, women are leaning in, rising up, and investing at increasing rates in philanthropic directions. With a vision, a voice, women are aligning their economic freedom, influence, and time strategically to directly address social issues, not to mention claim their own personal power as philanthropists. Women helping women, collaboratively evolving our world's focus to a more inclusive place. Women like Oprah, Melinda Gates, Mackenzie Scott, Priscilla Chan, Belinda Stonick, and Senator Nancy Ruth, our very own feminist philanthropist. And I must mention Concordia University alumni, Gina Cody, $15 million donation to the engineer faculty at the university. Now her name is on the building, the country's first engineering faculty to be named after a woman. All are leading the change in redefining the face of $1 million philanthropist. Don't have a spare $1 million tonight? Don't worry, we can all be philanthropists right here in our own backyards. A philanthropist is a person who donates time, money, experience, skills, and talents to help create a better world, a better neighborhood. If you're not a philanthropist yet, we hope by the end of this session you will be. Welcome and thank you everyone for joining us this evening. A few years ago, TD Bank funded a report called Time, Treasure, and Talent, Canadian Women in Philanthropy. Tonight, we have three amazing dynamic speakers who are our very own local TD group to lead our overdue conversation on the subject of women in philanthropy. Our first guest speaker is Anna Yaakovelli, Senior VP, Metrowest, where she oversees 170 branches and their operations. Throughout her 30 years of experience, Anna has established her leadership brand in financial services. She proudly sits on the board of multiple not-for-profit organizations, such as the chair for TD's Friends of Environment Foundation, chair of the Joseph Brant Hospital Foundation board, and our very own, as Jazzy said, 2021 United Way campaign chair for Halton Hamilton. Anna is passionate about supporting not-for-profit organizations and is actively involved in TD's Women in Leadership initiatives, where she takes pride in mentoring colleagues within TD. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here tonight.
Yeah, and next up we have Joanne. I want to just mention a few things about Joanne. She is a VP of Philanthropy at TD Wealth. She's developed strategies to help clients incorporate philanthropy into their overall financial estate plans. She has done TD's research efforts around women philanthropy since 2014. She's the architect and executive director of the TD Private Giving Foundation, the first donor-advised fund to be launched by a financial institution in Canada. Joanne is a member of a CAGP's Government Relations Committee. She is a member of the Estate Planning Council of Toronto and an active volunteer on several gift planning committees for charities. She's also the vice chair of the board for Bishop's University Foundation and is a member of the advisory board at Carleton University for Masters in Philanthropy and Not-for-Profit Leadership Program. The only one of its kind in Canada. Joanne, so grateful to have you with us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for including me. I'm really excited to be here.
And I want to share some information about our next speaker, our third speaker, Alicia Rose, on the panel. Alicia's lifelong passion for social impact started upon completing her postgraduate income programs then pursuing a career in not-for-profit arts sector. Such a combination. She has worked with organizations such as Businesses in Arts, Pathways to Education, and Harborfront Center. Her roles in the not-for-profit sector ranged from the program director to fundraiser and everything in between. Alicia joined TD in 2018, where her portfolio focused on recommending grants aligning to TD Ready Commitment community initiatives across Canada. Included in her portfolio was funding for TD's Black History Month programming, dance, theater, music, and spoken word. She has recently moved into an expanded role that includes oversight of TD's colleagues' engagement strategy, United Way employee giving campaign, as well as Ready Challenge, which is TD's North America's innovation fund, providing grants up to $1 million across the US and Canada. Wow, it's fair to say that our guest panel is well positioned to speak on our subject tonight, both personally and professionally. We have a number of questions. So let's get started. Let's dive in. Anna, let's start with you.
Okay.
Anna, you are the Senior VP with TD and have a stellar career which spans from many areas of TD's businesses. Speaking to the inspiring leaders in the audience, tell us, what do you contribute to your success you've had in your career, and how did you get there? Was it luck, family, mentorship? Tell us about it.
Well, thank you. I'm super fortunate to be with TD for the last 31 years. And as I say to many people, I've always had a number of jobs within one big job. But I definitely think it's a combination of many things. Immigrant parents, they taught me and my siblings to work hard, respect each other, and always be kind. I truly believe hard work is in my DNA. Also, opportunities that came my way and I took risks. I often talk to many colleagues and they're not sure what they should do as they wait for the perfect job. And I always said, you can stay in one job and keep doing the same thing over and over again, or take a risk and do something different, learn and grow and be open to other opportunities. I also have a drive to help wherever I can, be it at work, with my friends, or my community. I just want to make a difference. And then lastly, I would say I'm very fortunate to work with some tremendous colleagues, as well as folks within my community that if things weren't going well, they would straighten my crown without me knowing so. So they worked very,
I love
very
that.
well.
You know, we can turn to each other and straighten our crowns, because I know I need that once in a while too.
We all do. We all do.
So what advice would you have for other women who are looking for a mentor? What steps should they take?
So mentors can play several roles, but ultimately, you know, as I viewed my mentor, it's one for career advice. And mutual respect and trust are really important when you have a mentorship relationship. So I would recommend that you start by reaching out to someone you trust, or someone, or ask someone you trust and knows you well for a recommendation for a mentor. And your mentor really needs to be honest with you. And I often think about the words of Brené Brown, where clear is kind and unclear is unkind. And so we really need brave leaders and more courageous cultures. And so I think it's also important to know that a mentor is different from a sponsor. A sponsor is really directly familiar with your work and will vouch for your brand or your abilities. Normally a sponsor is a boss or an old boss that we work with. A mentor is very different than that.
And also the cheerleader, you know, that's not behind you, but beside you. And you said, you step forward into the risk zone,
right,
so that you can move forward. That's great. Thank you. I'm going to move it over to Joanne with our next question. You yourself are a highly accomplished leader at TD Wealth across Canada. You've led Canadians through philanthropy. Tell us, what drives you and your role at TD Wealth?
So I joined TD in 2003, and it wasn't a job posting. I actually approached TD with a proposal to be the first financial institution in Canada to launch a donor advised fund program. And back in 2003, philanthropy was a little bit of a fluffy thing on the side. Our core business was investment management and banking. So it was a tough sell, but they took a chance. And we did launch the Private Giving Foundation in 2004, which I'm very proud of. And we were the first financial institution in Canada to launch a donor advised fund as an alternative to establishing your own foundation. And TD hired me 6 months pregnant which I fully disclosed to them. And, the interview process was going really, really quickly. And I was wearing these baggy jackets, and I suddenly thought, oh my God, I need to say something. And so I said, there's something I need to tell you. And I did share it with them. And they said, well, that should not be, that should not stop us from hiring you if you're the right person for this job. And so they took me on at that, in that stage. And I have an 18-year-old son now who's thriving. But I have the pleasure of, and now today, nobody at TD would argue with me in leadership about the importance of philanthropy for our high net worth clients, for our families, for the clients that we serve. It's so important. And I have the pleasure of working with our clients to help them give money away to charity. So a lot of my colleagues are in jobs where they're helping their clients make money and invest money. I have the pleasure of letting them make the money and then give it to me, and I'll help them give it away to charities. And of course, that's very, very rewarding for our clients, and very rewarding for me because I get the pleasure of seeing their good work and the impact that they're creating in the community.
Wow, it's such a gift. And I mean, to have you on the team, to have TD, I might have to talk to you a little bit more, Joanne.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm just going to give Alicia an opportunity to answer question number 3. And what we have here is you have a wealth of experience from various roles in the social sector to board positions. In the last few years, you have transitioned into the private sector. What's influenced, motivated the transition to TD? And what is your why for getting involved in being an advocate for change?
Yeah, thanks for that. What is my why? To be very honest, I am. I never really thought about advocacy and what drives me as really a separate entity. I'm the daughter of Paul and Valine Rose, immigrant parents, and come from a long line of very strong Caribbean women. And it was instilled in me in a very young age that we look out for each other. We amplify and advocate for those who are not in the same position of privilege as I might have. And so that was always kind of at the core of my being and the core of my household. And so it was only natural for it to become a core part of my career. And so I worked in the nonprofit sector for about 15 years. And I felt very privileged to be there, felt like I made a lot of impacts, learned a ton. But I began to recognize that working in the social sector alone wasn't going to make the changes that I wanted to see. This had to be cross-sectoral. We had to work with public sector. We had to work with the private sector. But of course, me being me, didn't want to just work with them. I wanted to kind of go and see what it was all about and get my feet wet. And as someone who had written her fair share of grant applications, I really understood the economic influence of the bank. And I was also noting the shifting narrative over the past, 15 years or so, the expectations from consumers as to, what companies should be responsible for as far as being global citizens. And I wanted to play my part in that. I wanted to kind of tell the authentic story from the position of the private sector. And I guess why specifically TD? I saw the work that TD was doing in community. I saw the work that TD had done for a long time in terms of Black History Month. And I thought I could be an authentic agent of change in this space and also learn how we could better partner with local communities and kind of shift those concepts of what traditional corporate citizenship look like and colleague engagement and philanthropy. So delighted to be here to be able to add my efforts and talents to the team.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that personal side. And as Anna was talking about, mentorship and role models and cheerleaders, it sounds like you had that right in your own house and took that outside, and to have those models in front of you and then beside you going forward, and a great collaboration. I love what you're doing. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let's explore the topic a little more of women redefining the face of philanthropy. In 2016, TD put out a great report that highlights Canadian women and philanthropy. And we're going to put that link up in the chat box for our viewers. And I invite you, of course, after the webinar to take a look at that in more depth. Lots of great information. And so we're just going to highlight some things here. The report, Time, Treasure, Talent, suggests that women can and will play an increasingly powerful role in Canadian philanthropy. And who better to speak on this but Joanne? So I am going to pull you up for the next question. Joanne, here's a two-part question. How do you define philanthropy, and why is it important to have a philanthropy plan?
Okay, so some people think, or a lot of people think, that philanthropy means giving millions of dollars away, and that's not true at all. Philanthropy is giving time, treasure, or talent for the public good. So if you're a volunteer, if you're helping your neighbor, perhaps a senior, an isolated senior, you are a philanthropist. How we define philanthropy versus charitable giving is charitable giving, and we've all been in that position where we've written a check to a charity without a lot of thought and not really any commitment. So philanthropy is often a longer term commitment with the organization. It's giving in a way that reflects your values, and it could be volunteering. Sometimes we have more time than money to give. Sometimes we have more money than time to give. And sometimes we're fortunate enough to be able to give both. But there's that longer term commitment, and often an engagement with the organization and with the charity. So we do encourage our clients to develop a philanthropic plan that reflects their values. And we actually have a process that we walk through, an exercise that we walk through. And why it's important is because, well, first of all, there are 86,000 registered charities in Canada. They're all knocking at our door and phoning us, often during dinner, and asking us for money. And what we don't like to see, and we don't like to see at tax time, is our clients walking in with the shoebox full of tax receipts, because they're just reacting here and they're reacting there to all of these asks, but they're not necessarily giving in a way that reflects what's important to them and what's important to their family. So if you actually take the time with your family to put a philanthropic plan together, which will change from time to time as your interests change, you can have a greater impact with your philanthropy as opposed to being so scattered. That's number one. But the other feedback I get when people take the time to do a plan is that when these requests come in, it actually becomes easier to say no. It may be a really good cause, but not one that you have decided is important for you and your family. So you can really have that much greater impact and be much more focused if you put that plan together.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much. I know for our family, you know, we have our positions and things that are really important to us. And exactly to your point, you know, we get lots of knocks on the doors, another telephone call, but we have our basket, and we can share what we're doing and what we're committed to, you know, with those people, and certainly thank them for you know, volunteering their time to be soliciting. But yes, we can focus, and it is really helpful and, you know, quite empowering in sharing, you know, your personal story in the way that you're giving. So part of that is, where and when do we think we should start the conversation about giving in society?
So, I mean, we have a lot of our clients that start with their children and they get involved as a family. And it could be participating in events. If the children are very small, then, you know, maybe it's looking through a World Vision catalog as an example and buying a goat and you know, purchasing something that they can actually relate to. But you know, your kids are never too young to really engage them in how to give back to the community and get out there. I mean, we've been in COVID, unfortunately, for a while now, but another great way to get your family involved is through events, whether it's a walk or a bike, especially if it's something outdoors that's healthy for the family to do and to support a good cause. Then it's a great time. And I think, you know, we've seen that if you engage your children, they're going to grow up to be philanthropists also, because you've set such a great example.
Right. Again, going back to our role models or our mentors. And, you know, a couple of decades ago, I remember when they implemented that within Canada around volunteering component, you know, for high school. So, you know, that's been helpful. And certainly United Way provides those opportunities for our youth to come and volunteer in our programs locally. So that's another way to, you know, empower our youth to see what they can do for their own community. So yeah, thanks for that, Joanne. So, oh, wow, we're getting close to that time. So here's the tax question. Tax season's around the corner. Is it possible to make a difference today and save on your taxes?
So I'll take that. So there are tax incentives for charitable giving, and we actually in Canada have very, very generous tax incentives compared to other countries when it comes to charitable giving. So you do get a tax receipt that gives you a tax credit, you know, somewhere almost half of it back. If you're fortunate enough to have invested in the markets and you have stock that has done well, appreciated publicly traded securities, and you donate like TD and you donate that stock, not only do you get the tax receipt, but you also eliminate the capital gains tax. And so normally, if you if you sell a stock, 50% of the capital gains is taxable. So it is important to look at the tax considerations and to give in the most tax efficient way. You will still be out of pocket a little bit, but if you can drive the cost of your gift down, then you can actually give more and have a greater impact. And the way the way I like to describe the tax system in Canada is that if you have any income, your tax dollars, which we call your social capital, they go to Ottawa. That's just how it works. And so you actually have a choice. You can say, I love how they're spending my money in Ottawa, I'm good. Or you can say, I'd like to take some of that social capital back in the form of tax credits available for charitable giving and allocate them to things that are important to me. And that's really what, you know, the whole tax benefit of giving is about. But I would definitely recommend, if you're considering especially a larger gift, that you get advice as to how to give in the most tax efficient manner, so you may be able to give more and even have a greater impact.
That's super. So talking about, how you want to invest your donations. Joanne, we often hear that men and women donate differently. So can you please tell us a little bit more about how this has changed over time?
Sure. So we know from our research that women make investment decisions differently than men. We've done a lot of work in that area. We've been working hard to train our advisors that women crave a different experience. They do more due diligence than men. It takes longer for them to make a decision because they are doing that kind of a due diligence. When it comes certainly to philanthropy, women crave relationships. We love relationships. So we want relationships with the organizations. That could be with the staff, it could be with the board, it could be with other volunteers, with other donors. We want that relationship. We want to actually feel involved in the organization. And so it's actually a good idea for women to volunteer as a way to get to know the organization before even making that really significant gift. So, I mean, women have as a huge potential to make a difference. Yeah. We are, slowly closing the gap in wages. We still have some work to do, but women's life expectancy is greater than men. So women often inherit twice, from a parent and then again from a partner or spouse. And so they have the potential to make a huge difference, and they care. They care. Not to say men don't. Men might, might make a decision quicker because their buddy asked them to support something. It's not that women won't help what their friends are supporting, but they will take that time and they will build those relationships and they will get to know that cause.
It's interesting, and more about that, I think, in the report that people can read about. Yes, and you were part of that report, were you not?
Yes, we held focus groups with women philanthropists in major cities right across right across Canada, actually, including Burlington. We did a focus group out there, and we just, there was quantitative research done by a company called Investor Economics, but we also talked to women philanthropists right across the country to produce that report.
And I'm sure if people want to continue this conversation, they know who to call now.
Absolutely, absolutely, for sure.
You're right here in our own backyard, as we said. That's great. I'm going to let you just sort of take a break, Joanne, and I'm going to ask Alicia some questions. So thank you so much. In your role at TD, Alicia, you lead United Way Giving Campaign, and your team drives impacts of TD's corporate citizenship strategy outcomes through a number of initiatives and approaches, including the TD United Way Employee Giving Campaign. First, please tell us why United Way's Giving Campaign is important to you and to the TD employees. And second, tell us what the TD Ready commitment is. So sort of a two-part question there.
Sure. So I'm going to flip it around. And I'm going to talk about TD Ready commitment first, and then the campaign.
Thank you.
So the TD Ready commitment is TD's corporate citizenship strategy. It launched in 2018, and it was really the recognition that the world is moving at like a neck-breaking pace. There's been more change in the last decade than in the 50 years before that. Part of that is due to technology, right? And this can be incredibly positive. It can provide a lot of opportunities and a lot of access. The challenge is that not everyone feels that access and has, equitable opportunities to all of that change, and especially when it's happening at this pace. And so TD is targeting $1 billion by 2030 towards community giving in 4 different areas that support this change. And those areas all ladder up to the Sustainable Development Goals set out by the UN in 2015, I believe it is. So those 4 areas are connected communities, vibrant planet, better health, and financial security. And we call them our interconnected drivers of change because there's a recognition that all of these need to work in tandem with each other. None of these issues are independent of each other. And so that's the foundation, kind of the groundwork of all of the initiatives and programs coming out of the Global Corporate Citizenship team. And that includes the TD United Way Employee Giving Campaign. So it is one part of the work that we do, but it's really an integral part of the work we do. We know that our colleagues, they tell us quite loudly that they want to have an opportunity to engage with their local communities. They want to be able to give those 3 T's, the time, talent, and treasure. So they see this as their outlet to be able to connect in to a broader kind of story that TD is writing. And the campaign has run for decades. It's really interesting to see, and heartening to see that even after 50 years, the campaign continues to pick up steam. Last year was one of our strongest campaigns ever. We're tracking to do that again this year. So it really showcases, people's commitment to the campaign and to the work that we and United Ways across Canada are doing.
Well, I have no doubt with you leading that team that they're going to surpass that goal. They're lucky to have you on that team. Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
So TD is working towards a more inclusive tomorrow through their TD Ready commitment. How has this program evolved over the last year to better address issues of inequalities within society? Yeah,
I mean, this past year, 2 years, has been one of a lot of unexpected change. And is one that has really highlighted some of the inequities that have always existed in our communities. We heard this, this saying during the heart of the pandemic, we're all in the same ocean, but we're not all in the same boat. And that really resonated to be true to me. So when we look at TD Ready Commitment, we look at our programs and initiatives, it's important for us to actually just call this out and to actually just say it. We know that certain communities such as Black and Indigenous, those without access to internet, those with learning disabilities were disproportionately impacted throughout the pandemic.
Absolutely.
So this year, actually last year, 2020, I'm losing years, we we pivoted, our innovation fund, TD Ready Challenge, to really call out the gaps in these communities, to understand why systems had been set up in such a way that they were feeling these disproportionate impacts, and where we could, make a change. And so we called those out in some of the work that we're doing. We also have made a concerted effort to increase our philanthropic donations to Black-led organizations, Indigenous-led, and Asian-led organizations. We know that it's really integral to reach organizations that are, led by the communities in which they're serving,
Sure.
and have an understanding of the issues that these populations are facing. And so I would say the biggest thing that we've done over the past year and a half is listen and then take action. It's one thing just to listen to our community partners, but what are we doing with that information? And so we continue to kind of keep those bridges going and built, and communication going two ways, so that we can continue to evolve TD Ready commitment as required, as we see gaps that we can address.
It must be quite amazing to have TD behind you doing that heavy lifting, because it's not an easy, it's a challenge, so.
It is a challenge, but it is wonderful to work with people who are authentically looking at, how do we do this better? This is never going to be, there's never going to be one day where we all have the answer to this, but we can continue on the journey collectively.
Right. Well, thank you for that. But we're going to continue with another question, a couple of questions with you.
All right, let's go.
So let's keep going. Let's unpack a little more. There's a couple important points. What are the intersections of race and gender in giving patterns? We're talking a little bit about that.
Yeah, this is a bit of a tough question for Canada, because there's not a lot of race-based data to draw on that I would feel, comfortable quoting from. But I would say that we can extrapolate some of the studies that we've seen done in the US around some of these issues. And it might surprise people, I don't know, may or may not surprise people, that we see that a lot of communities of color actually share a larger share of their wealth to charities than other racial groups in America. Black households on average give 25% more of their income per year. And so what we know from reports from, I believe, 2020 is that communities of color continue to give at an increasing rate. And I would hazard a guess that we would see that reflected in Canada as well, should studies be done of that nature here. And we also know that for Indigenous and Black communities, that giving is often much more personal. It's often less about giving to large umbrella organizations, and we can theorize about why that is, but it can often look like giving to a church or giving to an organization that is small and focused on supporting their community, or giving to education. It also can look in ways that we might not see as formal philanthropy. So like, how many of us send money on a regular basis back home? And that could be to an individual or to a school or to build a road, or, I certainly give to charities, outside of Canada. And so while philanthropy is at the core of many communities of color, it might not show up in the way that we've often defined it. And so it might not be recognized in the same way as, people who might give to larger institutions. That being said, there's a huge opportunity, when Joanne talks about women in philanthropy and, the opportunity we have there. I see that similar intersection with women of color and their capacity and ability and desire to give. I think it's just really about recognizing and harnessing that power.
Absolutely. And when we rally together, as I was saying at the beginning, and come together in that common need or cause, it's really quite incredible. As you said, you build that team around it to try to conquer it, and that can start again in our own backyard, in our kitchens, in all these different groups, and rise up and be really a powerful voice collectively together, like Women
Absolutely.
United. That's sort of what we've done at United Way. Just saying, yeah, we want to just come together as a group of women, diverse women, and focus on what we want to focus on here in the community. So we're having this overdue conversation: diversity, unity, and equality. Why is diversity important in the conversation?
I mean, I would offer that it's time to even move past diversity. I think diversity is important because we recognize that there are differences between us, and regardless of those differences, we're all deserving of a space and place. However, in terms of philanthropy, if you're asking me personally, I would love to see a more like pluralistic approach, which is it's active engagement with diversity. So we use this phrase that we celebrate diversity, but what does it actually mean? And I think part of what that means is building our knowledge and our understanding and kind of a two-way street around that diversity, and understanding that our individual success is inextricably linked with the success of our neighbors. Like if we want a stronger community, it cannot just be those people who look and act like us, whoever your us is. And so we have to understand that we collectively win or we collectively fail. And so part of that is starting to understand the issues that might face other communities or other people that you might not be familiar with. And that knowledge and seeing those gaps and potentially making a decision to give to organizations or groups that are historically underfunded might actually be the key in strengthening all of our experiences in community, as opposed to saying, I'm just giving to this one community. Yes, you are, but you're giving in a way that's going to strengthen for all of us. And so while diversity is important, I think the depth of understanding is even more key.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Before I let you go though, I've got one question before I come back to Anna. So Alicia, from your own experience, what does philanthropy mean for the next generation, the millennials, the Gen Zs? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it's a big mystery here. I don't. I think the methodology of how my generation or a younger generation may give is different, right? Like it could be through different technology. You're looking at PayPal and Venmo and all of these different things. But the desire to give is still very strong. Like we look at during the pandemic, and I believe it was a Forbes study that showed that millennials and Gen Z gave more donations during the pandemic than any other generation. Like they're out there to give. I personally think the biggest difference, and I will just say that this is anecdotal, this is not based on a study, but I see the difference is that there's an expectation of more transparency. There's an expectation when this generation gives as to more clarity as to where those funds are being spent. There may have been a time when someone could donate $100 to an organization and just feel confident that the organization was going to use it in the way that it should be used. And now it's called into question much more. And what portion of it is kind of so-called reaching the community? And I say so-called because administrative costs are important. We need the administration in order to actually support community. But I do think there's that balance where we're able to reach, kind of this generation, have them understand where their dollars are going. But at the same time, being true to the idea that trying to function in a charitable sector on all of our dollars going straight to community and nobody receiving administrative pay and salaries is not a realistic way. So I think there's a balance there. And I think it'll take a transparent conversation with this new generation of donors and meeting them where they are with the technology that they use.
So it's definitely a pool that can be tapped into. We just have to put out the invitation.
100%. They're there. They're already giving. So it's just a question of tapping into.
Hello, we're
we're here.
Yeah, that's right. Great. Thank you so much. It's very insightful. So as we continue to work towards changing systems by challenging biases, we know much work is still left to be done. And I have a question coming back to you, a couple questions actually. So we're seeing a steady pace of more women in senior leadership roles or on boards as directors. Share with us some of the obstacles you have overcome and what advice would you give to women like yourself?
Well, I hope this is good advice because of my culture. So I'm Italian. Often I could be very loud or impassionate at times. And it's often people would characterize me as being emotional very early in my career. And so I think as women, we're definitely held to different standards. We're either too loud, we're too soft, emotional, not emotional enough, we're too weak, we're too passive. Every possible feeling is always a woman. It's never really given to a man. And so as I kind of navigated throughout my career, I would definitely face these challenges, and how I would overcome it is either I talk to my mentor or I talk to a friend and, you know, kind of go into my little private spot, release my frustration, cry, get angry, but then I just head back out there again. And so I do think it's important that we have to stop defining women versus the ideal worker of the past, which is a male. And if we keep doing that, it's really not going to be fair to women. And now as we've navigated through the pandemic, it's interesting because key leadership skills as we've gone through through the pandemic are those of authenticity, courage, vulnerability, which really are all soft skills. And so I just think it's interesting how things have shifted, that it's really important that you show your true authentic self. And so my advice would be, as you're a senior leader and as you're coming up through the ranks and you've been invited to sit at the table, you need to make sure that you speak when you're at that table. Don't just sit back, but speak, because you've been invited to be there and you need to be confident. Don't be apologetic. Apologizing is just, it diminishes ourselves. You need to be confident. And so I just think it's important now as we start to come out of this pandemic and more women will be at these leadership tables. It's just, we need to make sure that we're not looked at differently than men.
Thank you. And what about the energy? Like, where do you get that from?
I could say I get it from my mama, but no, it's just, I truly love what I do. And I'm being super true, like 31 years, and I've had a fantastic group of colleagues that I've worked with as well as leaders. And so one, I just love my job. I also try to really balance myself from a fitness perspective. I try to work out 3 or 4 times a week. In my United Way, friends and colleagues know that if I don't have my workout before our 7:30 a.m. board meetings, I get a little cranky. And I also try to take my vacation. I think it's really important that you take vacation and make sure you take a break. And so that is an interesting way to also balance things. And then I also just think it's important to give back. And so you do good, you get good. And so I'm just a big believer of that.
So talking about giving back. So this year, Anna, you've taken on another very important role, 2021 campaign cabinet chair. What inspired you to take on this leadership role?
So this is actually my second time chairing a campaign. I did it back in London in 2016 when I was working and living out there, and I truly loved it. And so I just think it's really important to be able to give back to the community and where we live. There are different ways that we can each give back. And I think Alicia had mentioned it before, as did Joanne. One is donating our time, sharing our expertise, or even contributing financially. And so I just know firsthand the impact that United Way makes, and I see that the organization is capable of accomplishing this for our community. So I'm just truly humbled to be part of this team and honored to be able to apply my leadership and help engage the amazing work.
Thank you. So in your personal philanthropy, why is it important to you to support local causes through the United Way in the community?
So what we are seeing is that the local issues, I believe, require local solutions. So now more than ever, the people of the community need support that local agencies can provide. So we know that children and youth who face multiple barriers in their younger years are more apt to face significant social struggles as adults. We know that mental illness is on the rise. We know that the best way to prevent intergenerational poverty is by investing in youth and providing a network of support. And we also know that 1 in 3 domestic violence victims report abuse. And so these issues impact and they belong to all of us. And so they put pressure on our healthcare system, they increase high school dropouts, and they can drive up crime. So what's incredibly impactful for the United Way is that it is positioned as the backbone of a network of support. It's vital because quite often when an individual or a household comes forward to ask for help, they often require services from multiple programs and agencies that are local.
Wow, and so much there. So some of the current needs, and anyone that's listening tonight, how can one get involved to support the most vulnerable in our community?
So the social and the economic impacts of COVID-19 have definitely transformed every aspect of our community and the individual lives. And people who are already experiencing inequalities, including poverty and homelessness and social isolation, have now been disproportionately hurt by the pandemic. So we really want the community to stand us to join the recovery, to ensure that everyone in our community has fundamental needs met. And even more importantly, it is really to tear down the barriers of discrimination, racism, and systemic inequities that really hold us back from reaching our community's fullest potential. Donors can be sure that your generosity gets to where it is needed most. So we are working in collaboration with municipal and regional government, frontline agencies, other funders, and we're definitely consulting with key partners to coordinate investments to ensure that we're making the biggest impact possible. So last year, United Way Halton Hamilton helped 310,000 plus residents across this community of Halton and Hamilton, and we relied on 266 United Way supported programs for life-changing services. So we definitely need your help. So getting involved is just as easy as going to the website, www.uwhh.ca.
Wonderful. And if you specifically want to get involved in Women United, you can go to the same website and find a link there to learn more about what we are laser focused on in the community. So I invite anyone that's interested in learning more to reach out through the website, and we'll go from there. Well, thank you all so much for taking the time, as I call the hour of power, or power hour, informative, thought-provoking, and inspiring. Thank you, Anna, Joanne, and Alicia, for volunteering your keen insights and diverse perspectives on our subject matter tonight. So looking at the clock, we're in pretty good shape. I do, before I go, we've got a couple of more minutes. Joanne, was there anything that you wanted to add to this evening that we haven't touched on?
Well, I think I would just reinforce to consider a philanthropic plan, to talk to your charities, to talk to your advisors. I loved one of the comments that I heard earlier about charities need admin costs. They need to hire good people. They need to pay them. They need to have human resources. They have marketing expenses so they can get the word out. And I just caution because sometimes when I'm talking to very successful, intelligent people, they will say, I only want to make donations where it all goes to the program and nothing to salaries and nothing to administration. And I just want to say that could be problematic. In fact, that could be a red flag if you're not investing in the people in the human resources in the organization. You need to be, and CRA, Canada Revenue Agencies, has guidelines, so you need to be reasonable, but it's not, a badge of honor because you're not paying your staff well, and you're not, investing in their development, or you're not investing in technology so they have computers to work at. So it's one thing that I hear a lot, and I think it's worth just being cautious about, only seeking out organizations who have the absolute lowest administration costs.
Oh, thank you. I so appreciate you sharing that information, and all of you. Again, anyone that's interested in reaching out to you, I do believe they can. You're out there in our neighborhood. And I just want to sign off with a quote before I hand it back to Jazzy, from writer Miriam Baird. The results of philanthropy are always beyond calculation. Truly, being a philanthropist, it's a priceless contribution, a great imprint that we can leave on the world, part of our legacy. So thank you all for being part of the conversation on women in philanthropy. Such a pleasure. Jazzy?
Thank you, Michaela. And thank you, Anna, Joanne, Alicia, for joining us this evening and sharing your guidance, your insights, but most importantly, for inspiring us with your stories and passion. When women invest in their communities to empower women and girls, it's a vital step in promoting gender equality and strengthening women's rights. So thank you once again for that empowering and inspiring conversation. And thank you to all of you. Just tuning in today demonstrates your commitment and passion to helping advance women and girls in our communities. We know more women, just like Anna was sharing earlier, more women, households, and families are living on the edge of crisis, facing significant barriers such as increase in violence, poverty, mental illness, and isolation. To reduce the opportunity gap between those facing impossible challenges and those who are not, this is something we work on tirelessly every single day. Together with your support, we will continue to lead the way and break the structural barriers women and girls face. And I know they've mentioned our website a couple of times, but I'm going to mention it one more time. If you would like to learn more about Women United or how you can get involved, please visit our website at uwhh.ca. And if you would like to make a social investment to support vital social service programs, by donating today, you can help support over 18,000 women and girls accessing United Way funded programs. So just $1 a day, less than a price of coffee, provides delivery of 47 hot nutritional meals to isolated individuals and seniors in need. Or $25 a week, you can give 10 newcomer women access to emergency counseling support for abuse-related issues. Your support is greatly appreciated, and every gesture truly makes a difference. So once again, thank you, Anna, Joanne, Alicia, and Michaela. And thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening and being a part of this very important conversation. Have a great night, everyone.